Hey everyone, Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett. On today's episode of the Mayor's Table, we have Four Corners Economic Development CEO Tim Gibbs. He's going to be talking about what makes a community competitive when it comes to business retention and expansion and attracting businesses here to the area. You're going to love this show. Lots of insight from Tim. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome to the Mayor's Table. I'm Farmington Mayor Nate Duckett, and with me today is a second-time guest of the show, a man who's been here now 16 months, maybe?
Right at it.
Yeah. CEO of Four Corners Economic Development, Tim Gibbs. Thanks for being here, man.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. Thought it'd be a good time to bring you back in and kind of give us a synopsis of how things are going over at Four Corners Economic Development, what your perception has been here in this community over the last 15 months, and strengths and weaknesses and challenges and all that good stuff.
That's a whole lot.
It's going to be a good show.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, what's going on over at Foreset?
Well, we're busy right now, and we should be. We're busy. We're still doing a lot of the work it takes to compete. I mean, we're out there competing. Just today, we submitted a large RFI, which is nice.
What is an RFI?
Request for information.
Okay.
It's a company that's looking for a home. It's a company that has a matrix of questions they want to ask, and they send it to states, and usually it's a couple states, and that state will then look and say, these communities have the attributes we think of what they're asking for, and they're ask us to answer a series of questions.
Sure.
It can be 10 to 100 questions. And then they grade those, and then they try to take a big pile and make a short pile. From that short pile, they start talking to these local communities, and they try to find a good fit. If they find a good fit and things work, they can make an announcement and come to that community. If not, they can sometimes go back and have to do it again because they have a series of things they think which would make them be successful. It can be things of they're close to the markets where they're selling their products, or close to the places where the raw materials are coming from, or it's a middle ground for distribution that they can go to the West Coast from here and they can serve the Texas market, whatever it may be.
Right.
And they're all different. Usually we never know the name of the company. It's by code name. It could be Wile Coyote. I mean,
Right.
It could be anything. But yet you have to treat each one of these things like it's the last one you're ever going to see. And you have to market your community. You have to have both the quantitative data of what they're asking for they can grade you. But along the way, you try to tell the story, too, of who you are, what you have to offer, and how they could potentially be successful here. So to do those type things, though, you got to have data, and you have to know yourself.
Sure.
You have to know your people. You have to know your sites. Many, many times when we get these proposals from companies, we have 3 days to respond to it. So if you don't have your data and you don't know your things, you can't leave blanks. And you have one chance to survive and advance in the process. So I would be happy if I had one of those every single day to do, because it's just like getting up to bat. You're not going to get a hit unless you get to the plate. So the better job we do on each one of these things, whether it's for our utility partners that could bring it to us, or it's the New Mexico Partnership, which is the economic development arm of the state, whoever that brings it to you, the better job you do, the more professional you are, the more on time that you are, the more competitive you are, you're more likely to get the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So we've been, over the course of a year, doing the work, putting in the time to know our workforce and to know those sites, and to wrap it in a story of who we are in this region and what we have to offer business and industry.
Sure. How many of those do you think you've filled out since you've been here?
Not as many as I want.
Yeah.
It's less than 10.
Okay.
It's less than
I
10.
wonder what it's one a month, or it's something to that effect.
It's now we're doing some things to try to increase that, and we've spoke about this in the past. First, and I just said that if you do a better job, you get more and more and more, because your partners want to win. They want to send these to places that can perform, that are competent, that have product, that have invested in themselves, know their story, those type things. But then sometimes you got to get your own too. You just can't wait for the state or a utility or someone like that to send you something. You got to get out there. You got to, because the way that recruitment, and that's primarily what we're talking about, and I don't want to spend all the time on recruitment, or at least I don't want people to think that's all we're doing, because we're taking care of our businesses here too. But on recruitment, you got to understand how it works. And many times companies themselves won't go to the marketplace and go to communities. What they'll do is they'll hire another company called a site consultant. And that site consultant will come into a company and say, tell me about what you're looking for. Tell me what success looks for. Tell me why you want to expand. Tell me who do you sell to? Where's your product going? What's it cost you on your cost matrix? Is it, for manufacturing? Are you, because it could be that you're a heavy electric user and you got to go someplace that's cheap electric,
Sure.
like the city of Farmington.
Right.
Or you've got to go someplace that has good transportation, those type things. But the site consultant will sit down with them and help them make a list of what success looks like. And it can be a series of things. It can be short lists. It can be a long list.
Sure.
But it's a matrix that they can grade quantitatively to see how people compare on that. A site consultant will also, if they're good, save more money than they cost. Say they pay them $50,000 to do this service for them. At the end of the day, they're probably coming to the community saying, how are you going to incentivize us?
Yeah.
What are you bringing to the table that's going to offset the infrastructure cost? What are you bringing to the table that's going to train my employees? What are you bringing to those type of things?
You were economic development in Kentucky.
It was.
Okay, so now you're here in New Mexico.
Yep.
What do you see when you're filling out those matrices versus filling them out when you were in Kentucky? When it comes to incentives provided by the state or local, is there a lot more incentives in Kentucky than there is in New Mexico?
And I've worked across the nation. I've done this 27 years. I've worked in Colorado, worked in Washington State. Every community is different. Every state is different.
Right.
There's less here than every place I've ever worked because of the anti-donation clause. Now, my understanding, I'm a history of student, and I may get 3/4 of this right, and you can correct me what I get wrong, was a long time ago, primarily when they were putting railroads through, there was some people that took advantage of some systems. And,
Right.
the pendulum went way too far with people personally benefiting from public dollars. So they created this anti-donation clause that says you can't give public dollars to a private company, period. Then we have a modern economy that comes along where economic development, its status goes way up, and the game of economic development is we can make a good deal better with incentives. We can't make a bad deal good. But if it's a competitive between one or two or three different places that they could be successful in, more than likely they may go to the place they're going to get the most.
Sure.
We're handicapped in the state of New Mexico in playing that and our level of competitiveness because of some of the long-standing regulations that are still in the Constitution. And I've been told the only way to change that is take it back to the people, and there has been an appetite for that. Now, the way it works practically is, as economic development practitioners in the state, we spend a large portion of our time trying to overcome the knot that the state has put us in, where the state will spend for direct recruitment on economic development about $6 million a year. Arizona spends about $130 million a year, and Texas spends about $1 billion a year, and yet we have the most tight box of what we can do for companies. So it does make it more difficult. Now, we have to be creative, and we have to find workarounds, and they allow it, but it does seem difficult that we have to work against ourselves to be competitive.
Yeah. Well, I felt that way, when I ran for mayor here. Everybody talked about economic diversification. How do we diversify an energy economy when we're losing energy jobs?
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And it took government spending some money to focus on growth in our future to kind of start seeing some of this transformation happen. New Mexico's primed to do that. It's like the next step, I think, in their evolution. They need to do it because we're just going to continue to lag behind in every category as we have historically for a very, very long time. My opinion.
Every state has fortes. Every state has advantages and things to take advantage of. We shouldn't be doing it despite ourselves, though. And government can be a catalyst. You've heard me said, and I said last time I was here, and I say it when I speak most of the time, government, for the most part, don't create permanent jobs. Private business does.
Right.
But government can play a role in where those private businesses create those jobs. And that's
they definitely have influence.
They do, and so they can be a catalyst. They can be a partner. They can be a participant in the process, and that's when we are at our best. That's when we make 1 and 1 equal 3, and that's when we compete, and that's when we have people wanting to come here. And there's people talk about diversification of economy, and I completely concur with that. But how you diversify is really, really important. For us, and one of the things we've been working on for the last year with Foreset, when I got here, we were in a period of federal stimuli. There was more federal money out there and more grants out there probably than in the history of the United States government.
No doubt.
The pendulum was pegged over here.
Absolutely.
Or I guess it's over here.
Yeah.
We received a $100,000 Department of Energy grant. And what we said we wanted to do in the grant, it really wasn't the purpose of the grant, but when they read our application, they said, we're going to fund that. We want to see what you can do with that. Even if it's not quite by the matrix of the grant, we're going to fund that. And those things were happening at that point because there was just so much of it out there.
They were printing so much money, Tim.
They were. Even though they're stopping making pennies.
Yeah.
But our DOE grant, the premise of it was we wanted to take the building blocks that we have of an energy economy and find ways that we could find competitive advantages in it for manufacturing.
Yeah.
What can you make out of, natural gas, helium, hydrogen, CO2? And they're building blocks. They're building blocks of manufacturing. So it would be diversifying into manufacturing from just taking it out of the ground, but it's still based on the things that we have that's cheaper here than other places. Yeah. So there's competitive advantages to it. And
that's an important point.
It is.
And so one of the things that always concerned me is the demand, this transition, right? This energy transition that was being forced upon, or is still being forced upon us, is essentially stating we're going to get rid of your legs and ability to diversify in other ways by using the thing that you have that's most abundant and you can take most advantage of.
Well,
so where are you going to go? If we don't have natural gas and all those natural resources that we use now, and you tell us we can't use those, there is no growth opportunity. There will be no growth, period, or diversification.
We've talked about this. In my graduate work, on my capstone on this, I talk about the transition from economic geography economies. And economic geography is really easy. I mean, if you look at Farmington, the word farm's in it. I mean, okay, we used to be a farming community, okay? Bloomfield, same thing. Then we became an energy community. And when policy decisions are made anywhere outside of our preview that affects our basic level economy, there's going to be a hard transition. Some people call it a just transition. I don't see a lot of just about.
I would not use that word.
But there is a transition, and it's very, very difficult because you're losing your competitive advantage that built your community to the size it is today.
Yeah.
And so at that point, your community you're competing with the world, but you don't have the competitive advantages of what built it to go forward. So our grant and what we were trying to do was take the basket we have and find for new applications for the tools and the parts that we have, the competitive advantages for the economy of today, for what we can be tomorrow, understanding there are changes going on, and many of which we don't have any impact on, but we also have to find things we can be successful with. We've got a recruitment project that's a fertilizer company.
Right.
And it's public. I mean, I'm no NDA. There's a shortage of fertilizer in the United States. About 40% of the fertilizer used in the United States, it's imported. And do you know where it comes from? The top 3 countries it comes from?
Where?
China, when it's not embargoed to us, Russia, and Ukraine. And the reason why is the building blocks of fertilizer is natural gas. So
And it should be made right here with
and
our natural gas.
that's right, because we have a competitive advantage of it costing less here. If we don't have to transport it, and that's an issue here, if we don't transport it out, and you could get long-term contracts, you could get long-term contracts on natural gas in this basin all day long.
Yeah.
Because it helps stabilize the market for the producers here too. So it's a win-win. It helps our extractive industry. It's something you can bank on for the manufacturing process, and it's a competitive advantage. And we really, really need it in this country. And part of the model for this company as well, they want to export it as well, because there's 4 states in Mexico, in the northern part of New Mexico, that are huge growth areas for agriculture. They grow a lot of things.
Yeah.
And they're having to ship that stuff a long, long ways, most of it from the east, or most of it from the Gulf, to get here.
Isn't it true there's no fertilizer plants west of the Mississippi? Or there's a few?
There's a few, and they're not big.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a small new one in Washington State, but it's very, very small, not a lot of capacity. So facts, lies, and statistics, a little bit of both on that. But that's just one example of things we can make. CO2, how many of you drank a pop today?
Yeah.
Or it's a shielding agent for welding. Or if you're, when they did the CHIPS Act, because they were trying to get chips manufacturing back to the United States, when you make chips, electronic chips, you have to shield it. Well, that's a shielding agent. There's applications for these things. Probably not too many people watching this have bought a Ferrari lately, but if you buy a Ferrari in the United States, the oil that they ask you to use for your warranty is full synthetic oil made from natural gas. It's the cleanest, best lubricant. It's used in electric vehicles as well. Not for the engine part of it, but just for the lube. For lube. But that is made from natural gas. These are the things we can do. Well, other things as well, but
Sure.
that was our grant.
These are firm building blocks.
Yeah, and so we wanted to have a marketing plan. We wanted to know the segments of the economy, who to go after, who to talk to, and how we position ourselves to say, where else would you go? Why wouldn't you do that here?
So within your recruitment efforts, are you taking that information? Are you doing any outreach to those types of companies to say, we're interested in you? Would you come and visit us?
We are. In fact, one of the things, going back full circle when we're talking about how many of these things we've had a chance to fill out to recruit companies, we signed a contract with a company for lead generation. Lead generation has their ear to the ground about companies that are looking to expand but haven't picked a location yet. They could have been on CNBC yesterday saying, we had a great earnings call and we're going to have to expand, in the next year and a half to meet our demand, that kind of thing.
Sure.
They haven't went to Texas or Arizona or New Mexico yet. They're just looking ahead. But what we do with lead generation is we sit down with them and we say, we have 5 clusters or 4 clusters where we feel like we can really compete. And it may be energy, it may be transportation, it may be manufacturing or advanced manufacturing, those type things. They have to know us enough that they can basically make a pitch for us. And then they match make us with those companies that are looking to expand. And ideally, we get in front of them before they get to 3 other states or 4 other states, because we don't want to be, the odds are hard when you're one of 40.
What do you think about, just in general, because it's a fossil fuel? I mean, has the state spent any time and energy talking with us about, hey, we'd love to see fertilizer companies up in the northwest part of New Mexico. It's a perfect fit. Or do you hear any of those types of sentiments? And I'm asking because obviously the administration that's in there doesn't want fossil fuels. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's not the right
well,
way.
And
that's not the way of framing that.
I have not had anything but support.
They don't want coal.
I haven't had anything for support for any project. I really haven't. I can't. I won't. We've got a very good partnership, and we need a very good partnership with
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah.
And we need to perform. Sometimes we have to get our own. Sometimes we have to do things ourselves, but we've got good partners at the state as well.
Yeah, we work well with them. I know, our initiatives here, Low Hanging Fruit, the Outdoor Recreation Initiative, they've been huge partners in that, and we've seen a lot of success, and funding certainly from them. They want to see that area expand throughout New Mexico. So that's been very positive.
And even maybe we don't talk about that four-letter word begins with a C. Maybe we don't talk about that too much, but they've been supportive on natural gas as well. I mean, they've got some great ideas, and they're working towards some things that could really help us.
Well, we spend a lot of time, not just on this show, but on my radio show as well, talking about the market to get natural gas to the West Coast, and that pipeline would be a game changer.
It would be
for this area. I mean, it just creates so much opportunity, and we've got a ton of gas.
Well, and about
the demand is going up,
and it's the cleanest gas in the United States. It just is. And about the time you think that one formation may be starting to be depleted, there's another formation that has more than what we pulled out of the ground. I just read
about one the other day that they've discovered up by Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado, kind of in that area. That's
the Mancus,
another huge area that have not tapped into yet.
Well, the Mancus is performing.
Yeah.
I mean, the first wells, high pressure, lateral wells, it's there. So this community will have energy for a really long time. And you're right, getting it to other places. Because if you look at what we charge in MCF, and you look what the Asian companies or countries are paying, it's 3 to 4 times. And sometimes it's 7 and 8 times the spot market here. So getting it out and doing it safely and efficiently to a place where we could share it to the world, even if it is a transitional fuel. It's a clean transitional fuel. So I think there's a lot of folks pulling on that same rope.
So let's talk a little bit about, let's stay on energy, but let's talk about it, kind of behind the meter opportunities that exist with data centers. We talk a lot about AI.
Yeah.
AI is changing how we do everything. And I use it every day.
I do too.
For all sorts of various tasks. I mean, simple things to more complicated things, but I'm using it every single day, and I'm learning more on how to better use it. But it's going to require, it's interesting, the amount of information I can get it to pull up in just seconds. You're going, wow, it takes a lot of energy to produce this for as many people will be using this. It's going to be an incredible, I don't want to call it, it's going to be impactful. And I don't know if we have the infrastructure prepared for it yet, for what all the data we're going to be storing, but I don't know.
Well, let me talk just a minute or two about AI and the application and even our use of it as well. When you make an AI search, it takes 10 times the amount of energy than a traditional Google search. 10 times. And the reason why is there's so much more computing power being used. It's a deeper level.
It's like quantum physics happening right there in your
We're going to talk about that next, okay? I have a ChatGPT Pro 4.0 account that we're paying $200 a month for. Now, that account will not only answer your question, but it has memory. So it learns. Every single time I use it, it learns more about my application and the user, and it's catering those responses to give me better answers. I started off getting on and saying, tell me companies that are looking to expand, that are in the energy industry, that are looking in the Southwest United States. Well, that was my first query. And then every single day I would amend it to more specific answers.
Right.
And it's getting better and better and better about giving me,
based on your last search and understanding X, Y, and Z,
yes,
here's something even more.
Yes. Yeah. And so if I need to write a letter, it knows my salutation and has my signature. I mean, it's Big Brother. And so it can do all of that now where it didn't have that before. And it's the applications of it are I don't want to say endless, but they're pretty big. I mean, they just are. And even at $200 a month, the productivity I'm getting out of it is massive. It's more than $200 a month at what I'm getting out of it. Now, how these things work is, and where we are today and the opportunity for us, because there is a very unique opportunity. Because where we are, we've had generation, and we've lost some generation facilities here, namely, San Juan. But when you have generation, you have to have substations. And substations is where everybody's seen them in their little neighborhoods and different things, but these are massive substations where they take the power and they divide it up and they send it to different places. They either step it up or step it down in voltage, and they send it out. We lost the power plant, but we still have the substation there. We actually have 3 substations here, and they have direct connectivity because most of our stuff went to the West Coast. So if you have a data center, which is the thing that processes AI, it takes massive amounts of power. Most places in the United States, and there's a shortage of baseload power in the United States now, most places are, if they're not tapped out, they don't have a lot of excess power for these data centers. We have these grid components, these substations around where we can tap in to the grid. But what the AI data centers would like to do is they have what they want, what they call behind the meter generation. They want to generate their own power and not pay a power bill because they don't want to pay the taxes on it. They don't want to pay any of that stuff. They just want to take either natural gas or solar and those type things and run their data center.
Right.
But they can't do it without a connection to the grid. Because what happens if the sun doesn't shine? What happens if there's a shutdown or the gas-fired turbine isn't working that day? They can't be offline. So they need redundancy of several different sources for if one's not working, they can tap into the other. So even if you're doing behind the meter, you still need a connectivity into a substation. Well, we have those. But we also have the natural gas that could be used for behind the meter generation specifically for their purpose. And there was a bill passed this legislative session that allows data centers to have microgrids and a little easier pathway towards generation for behind the meter. I haven't read that bill yet, but I need to pull it. So the data centers are looking for a lot of the attributes we have. They're looking for a generation opportunity primarily with natural gas. They're looking for solar opportunities. We have that in spades, or they have the availability to do it in spades. And even on BLM land, that's one of the uses you can sometimes get approved is for solar on their land. And we have connectivity to the grid. So we're batting 3 for 3. And there's very few places in the United States that has those components, all of those components. I've seen 3 projects in the last 3 to 4 months. And they're big. They're big projects. Now, for us, we just got done turning one in. What we're going to do is we're going to take the information we used on that, and we're going to package it together, all together, and then we may go directly to the site consultants that handle most of these AI data centers and say, look at us. Because many times their grade sites is A, B, C, and D. Most people say most of the A sites are gone for data centers. The low-hanging fruit's already been picked. I think we're low-hanging fruit. If we're not an A, we're a B+. We can compete with this. Now, you got to be careful. It creates tax revenue. It certainly does. There's large construction jobs, probably a couple thousand for a few years that would come out of it. But there's not huge levels of direct employment. Even if you've got a $1.5 billion data center, it may have less than 100 jobs.
Sure.
It's just
over the long term.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
But there's different things, and sometimes it's a catalyst for other things around it too. So it may have 100 jobs, but it may take 800 jobs to support it.
Right.
From the HVAC or the plumbers or the
All
electricians.
The services,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So there's value there, and we have a competitive advantage. So yes, there's exponential growth in data centers. We could be ground zero for some expansion because we have a lot of attributes that just doesn't exist other places.
It's good for people to know that. It really is. Let's stay on this. One of the things I know you're most passionate about since you've been here is the industrial park idea. And so we've got land, or actually we don't have the land. There's land up around our airport.
You got some land up there too.
Yeah, a little bit of it. Yeah. But looking at potentially putting an industrial park there.
Yeah.
Talk about what you see there. What's the vision?
Well, part of it is we got to have things to compete. We have a service on our site that if someone has a listing on their building, we have the option, we have the ability to grab that and put it on our site and show it to people, and people can go to our site and they can search fourcorners.com, fourcornersed.com, and they can search and say, I'm looking for a 10,000 square foot building, looking for a 50,000 square foot building. There's a weird dichotomy out there. There's very few really, really modern, good buildings out there. There's several buildings that's been left over from 1985, 1994, where companies have pulled out of here. Maybe it's a gas and oil company, maybe it was whatever, and there's still buildings sitting there, but you'd have to retrofit everything in it to make it come up to modern standards. So, but for us, the difficulty is if these things aren't listed for sale, if it's an absentee landowner just setting on it, it's really hard to know and make those connections to the opportunities of what the marketplace has. If you have a public industrial park, it's an asset you can control, and you can also make certain it has the infrastructure needed to be competitive. The gas, oil, fiber, electric, all that stuff, water, those type things. We haven't had a lot of that. There's the San Juan industrial park that the county has out, but they just leased their building as well. So there's very little thing under control that can be managed and marketed for economic development primarily.
It's fun. When I drive to the bigger cities and I see their industrial parks, I'm blown away by the magnitude and how much bigger they are now than ever before.
And they're engines of growth.
Yeah.
They're engines of growth.
Phoenix. The ones in Phoenix have just exploded.
So we need assets. We know your dirt. We need those assets. There's a unique opportunity up there. It lays well. It's got good flow, good access. It would work well. It can be zoned appropriately. And there, we've talked about the disadvantages or the issues we have here in New Mexico, but there's also some fortes that New Mexico has, and we can apply those to make that a very competitive site, something that we could have success with. New Mexico is the only state in the nation that has 3 national laboratories. And everybody knows Los Alamos, right?
Of course.
Most people know because of the credit union here, or the prior credit union we had, but knew Sandia. But the Air Force also has a research facility as well. Those 3 national labs have so much ability for research and applied research. How do you apply research to make a difference for a company? We would like to link, when I say we, I say that collectively, link a new development to one of those research partners. So it'd be a innovation or technology park, and that if someone comes there, they have a dotted line relationship with one of those national labs, which is something that a competitive advantage most places could never dream of. And there is a National Lab Industrial Park in Albuquerque right next to the airport. There's a model, and they've been highly successful at filling it up, not just having a win, not just cutting a ribbon, but one after the other, after another, after another. That's something we can bring here as well.
Speaking of airports, thanks for being on the first flight with me.
That was
awesome.
Powerful.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
How important is it, in your opinion? I mean, Durango's airport's been, it's 45 minutes away, so we've had access at least, but how important is it to have it right in your town?
We were the largest MSA in the United States that didn't have an interstate, a railroad, or a commercial air service. We can't say that now.
It's true.
Other people can't say it about us as well. I had site consultants in. I dropped them off this morning at the airport. They flew into Farmington and flew out of Farmington. I didn't have to take them to another state. I didn't have to put them in a car and take them 5 hours before a flight to Albuquerque. They flew out of Farmington. So accessibility, even just the acknowledgement that it's that level of city for commercial air service is powerful.
Like a feather in our cap.
It is not, and kudos to the team. You and the city. You did this. It wasn't any other organization. And you kept your nose to the grindstone. And people don't understand how hard it is to make that happen in this environment. There's a shortage of pilots. it takes the same pilot to fly a small plane as a little bit bigger plane, and yet the city made this happen. So kudos for that. And it is a big deal. It's a big deal when we bring people in and they can fly into this community to show that this community, to show the aviation heritage of this community. Mesa started here.
That's right.
I mean, this isn't a new thing.
They used to land 737s up there.
That I didn't know. Yeah. That's crazy.
There's a great Chamber of Commerce pamphlet from like 1960 something, and it's a picture up above of the airport, and there's a big old 737 Frontier Airlines on it. It's pretty cool.
I wish we still could.
Yeah.
I mean, because it wouldn't be cool to. I shouldn't say that. I was going to say if you could have Allegiant to Vegas.
Sure. So we, I'll let people know. I mean, we're hitting. For outbound, it's between 80 and 85%. Every flight is full, and that's good news. We want it to be 100%, obviously, but the numbers flying out of Durango are still really, really high. So we know that the market is there for people to still take advantage of flying out of Farmington.
And if you don't care, let me talk about that just for a second.
Sure.
I was chairman of an airport board back east, commercial airport. Not a huge one. It was number 202 in the nation. But we had daily flight service, and we did have 319s and 737s flying in there. The load factor, which is the percentage of full seats, butts and seats, is incredibly important. And I want to encourage everyone when they're making decisions to really think about where they fly from. They need to use this flight. We need to encourage others to use this flight. We need to keep a high load factor because decisions are made by airlines to make money. And if we don't have the load factors, we don't have flights. And I'm not saying our flights, we just need to get people thinking about it and used to using and supporting this flight.
Right.
It's incredibly
important. And if they
important.
want more flights to go to other destinations, then we need to have high load factors on this flight. I mean, that's
right.
The proving ground is what we're going to be able to do with this.
And you're parking for free.
Oh, yeah.
You're 10 minutes away.
How nice was it to step off the plane and just get in your car? You're in your car in 2 minutes, and you're at home in 15. I mean, for you, it was probably 5.
Well, I live a mile and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never lived that close to an airport, and I can't even hear the planes coming in and out.
I don't either.
I mean,
and I know they fly over. I've heard them before, but I don't hear them anymore.
So, your original question, it's a big deal. Yeah. It's a big deal. It helps put us on the map. It gives us better connectivity to the world.
There. Interstate, rail, and commercial air service. Yeah. And those. And if we can get rail, then we're only down to one. And I don't think they're going to build an interstate, but you never know.
Well, and even that, what we're trying to do with that is, if someone says interstate, we got a 4-lane highway.
We do.
And how fast do people drive? We've got connectivity and we've got good transportation. And it's a whole lot better than it used to be. That airline's a huge part of it. We're doing everything we can to help show the outside world what the freight could be as well. We were talking about RFIs and how many we have seen. We were counting every single one of them that said it was rail dependent. We were specifying the number of jobs and the type of things that are linked to having rail or having at least a transload as well. So we're trying to make the case and show that something could be successful here.
Fiber.
So I get myself in trouble because I've ran around saying that it's almost as important as electricity or water.
Right.
Well, water you die if you don't have. Electricity, it feels like you're going to possibly perish if you don't have, but fiber's way up there. It just is. And what we have is we have high-speed providers here, and we have good partners, but the attitude is evolving with the things we talked about with AI and different things. And now how many people stream video or social, just it goes on and on and on and on. We, Four Corners Economic Development, a couple years ago, got a grant to work on fiber for this community. And first off, we had to educate ourselves. We weren't going to be stretching fiber from pole to pole to pole. City's already done that, quite a lot of places anyway. But we were going to try to look and see where the issues may be and try to introduce people to the opportunity this community has. We had what we thought was a highly successful broadband summit here last fall. where we brought some companies in that said, hey, you're not an NFL city, but there's opportunity here. There's opportunity here, and there's a critical mass here in Farmington, and then you have surrounding communities as well, and then some hanging things like data centers and all kinds of things that could be partners as well. One of those is announced and is now advertising in the community that they will run fiber to your house. Now, the fiber they're talking about is an actual fiber optic cable directly to your house, terminated into a router or hardwired into devices that gives symmetrical speeds up and down, that has the same level of speed going up and going down, that could support multiple devices and at a reasonable cost.
Yes.
That's significant because that's not just a win. That's a win that keeps you even and maybe moves you ahead. Because when we do talk to companies, those are the questions they're asking. And it may be for they don't have a peeved off son that can't sit in his room and play Fortnite or whatever it may be, but all of those things are important. So that opportunity and the role the city's played and the foresight the city had about stretching and getting the middle mile and getting the fiber on the poles throughout many, many places in the city made it more competitive for people to come in and say, yeah, I want to be a part of that.
Well, I'm excited that they're here. You know, after the last, really, for me, 5-6 years of companies coming knocking on the door saying that they're going to do it, it's great to have someone. They came to city council and gave a presentation and said, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's great news. And again, it's about being competitive. And you can't reiterate that enough, and you said it quite a few times, but it is a game that we're playing. And all the cities are lined up, and we're all on the starting line. And every little bit that you can have to enhance your performance makes it that much better and puts you higher up on that podium.
And there's even different levels of communication that we're going to be striving towards as well. There are secure networks. If you send an email, or if you send an email to your cousin in Portland, Oregon, that email doesn't go from Farmington to Portland. It may go to Albuquerque, it may go to Miami, Florida, it may go to New York, it could go to Chicago, it could go to Shanghai. It bounces around. It is an intertangled web, and it's all directed by traffic and a lot of other factors. But some companies, if they're doing business with the government, doing business Department of Defense, aerospace companies with NASA and some of these things, they have to operate on what they call a secured network. And those networks are more not line of sight, but more direct.
Right.
Because they don't want it bouncing through Shanghai, China.
No.
And we met with our hospital. Our hospital, they're really building out all kinds of capacities to have the best and the brightest in the world do evaluations and look at different things. When they do an imaging of a heart, it's not a picture. It's a 3D image that they can spin around and send it to a heart specialist at Mayo or whoever it may be that they use, and they can see your heart beat real time from every single angle. So they can see what's going on without doing anything intrusive. But to do that, that's a huge data set. I mean, that's not an email. That's huge. And they were experiencing some package loss where they were losing data out of it. So they need bigger and better communications. They need to take the next step for they can even do more for the people that they serve. And that's the way that it happens. It takes more and more and more and more. It's not a static thing. You know, remember dial-ups when it was 2800 and 9600 and all these, it kept on going up and up and up. We're still going to be doing those things for the application that we know of today, and just like we talked about AI, and for the things that's come. It's going to change our world.
It's exciting. It's exciting stuff. And I'm glad it's happening here. What else is going on with Foreset? Foreset is a member-supported organization. You got businesses and governments and people that are they pay a subscription basically, and they get benefits out of it. But talk about some of those benefits for people who are listening if they're not familiar.
Well, first, and that goes back to one of the comments I made at the very beginning, it's not just about recruitment. Even though we're trying to make a bigger piece of pie, we are. And for business and industry to make a bigger piece of pie. We're just trying to enable them to do so and try to be that middle ground between the private sector and the public sector. But Foreset in economic development, you got to take care of your own. You got to take care of your businesses here. We've been out, and in the last, I think it's 7 months, we've been in front of almost 60, 70 different businesses where we did interviews with them. And some of it's structured and some of it's not. And that's on purpose. The reason we structure it is we want to be able to come to people like you and counsel and say, this is the voice of what business is telling us. These are the common issues. This is the rate of what they mention each one of these, whether it be workforce or regulatory or inflation or national policy or whatever it may be, those type things.
Right.
But then it's open-ended as well as what keeps you up at night. What opportunities do you have that if you had some help or you had a partner, you could take advantage of? And that's how we can help people grow as well. So it's not just the retention component, but it's the expansion component of it as well. So we do that to anyone we can. We certainly do it for our members, but if we hear someone has an issue, we're going to go see them.
Well, through this BRE study, so to speak, when you're having these interviews, what are the most common themes that are brought up as far as challenges for local businesses?
It's changed, and it always does, and that's the reason why you're never done. It's always a constant, ongoing thing. Uncertainty, since the last couple of months, uncertainty's been the big thing. Tariffs, the impact to my business, the impact of buying raw materials. Should I buy more now? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Can I wait and still get things in for Christmas? There's a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty is not the friend of business.
No.
And I'm not talking I'm trying not to talk politics here, even though you've heard me say many times, it does feel like the tectonic plates are moving underneath of us right now. And where they're going to settle out and what the end result's going to be, we just don't know yet. So uncertainty is one thing. But there are common things that we had these conversations last year and this year that are still there as well. Workforce is still an issue. And some of it's a holdover to the changes that happened post-COVID and during COVID. People want more flexibility to work. Their work, but they want more flexibility to strive this home-work balance. Or if they're single parents out there, they need the flexibility to be able to take care of and still provide. So flexibility and workforce are certainly some of those type things. We also hear quite often that government's not their friend. Now, it's not as much local as it is state and sometimes national as well, that they have to work to overcome rather than work to be empowered by.
Right.
And there's examples of that, specific examples of that as well. But even with all of these things, because you would think that we're getting more negativity, people are positive. In general terms, most people think there's good days, that there's more good than bad.
Sure.
That where they live, who they have, what they make, and their position in the economy is a good thing.
I'm getting that sentiment too, by the way. When I talked to a realtor up in Durango the other day, and he's like, I'm telling you, man, Farmington you guys are just on the cusp. It's going to be a good 10 years for you guys.
Yeah.
And talking to companies that are coming in and meeting, well, we really believe that, you all are primed up here in this part of the state to see some good growth. And I think a lot of things we're doing are kind of built towards that.
Yeah. I do too. If you look at the outdoor recreation, if you look at the park and recreations, if you look at the quality of life things from Connie Mack, and not all of it's brand new, but if you look at the new things, the wave feature, people that drive by the farmer's market and say, what is that? And you tell them it's a farmer's market, they're blown away. I mean, of what's going on in the investment that's being made, and it is changing a narrative. Now, you had mentioned I'd been here 16, 15 months. I still think I have a new set of eyes, and I think that's valuable. I wasn't raised here. I didn't play football. I didn't do those things. But at the same token, I see Farmington as this. Historically, maybe they thought of it as a little different thing. The city and a lot of the civic organizations are working towards expanding the narrative to a place that's recreational centered, a family centered, that has retail and opportunities and culture. And then we also have our neighbors that you can tap into as well. And so if you look at what Durango has and what Farmington has, they actually complement each
really
other
do.
extremely well.
I agree.
We don't
We're
compete.
pretty fortunate. I try to remind folks of that because, like, well, we need this kind of steakhouse here. You know, how come Durango has all these? Well, yeah, but you have Durango too, though. How many places can you live in the world where you've got a world-class tourism destination that's just right up the road and provides the type of, you know, entertainment and food and, you know, skiing. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
And it's not just Durango. I mean, I have a friend that has a place up in Telluride, not close enough that he invites me, but yeah. But he says that when he goes to Sam's, he runs into more people from Telluride than he does when he's there.
Yeah.
So
We have a lot of good things happening here.
It is.
And I think it's good timing for you to be here, to bring that fresh set of eyes and to bring the experience from these other states and maybe help change the game a little bit in New Mexico and encourage some things from the state level to encourage them to evolve. They really need to evolve, and they need to get serious about wanting to compete on the national stage, where I don't feel like they are. They're not serious about it.
I ran into the governor and asked her to spend a half day skiing with me because she loves to ski and I love to ski. And I was just going to talk to her about some experiences I've had across the nation, about other communities and how they compete. There's a unique period of time when someone is not going to run for re-election, but still has a session or two to do things.
Bless you.
Excuse me. We have something neat here, something unique, and something we can build upon.
All right, last one of these topics, housing. How critical is housing?
I mean, that alone, just that statement, how critical. I mean, everyone needs a home, and everyone wants a home that they can feel comfortable in raising their kids and living the quality of life that they see fit for themselves. There's housing issues across the United States. This is not just a Farmington or a San Juan County issue. But if you look at MLS or the MLS service now, there's probably 100 homes for sale.
Yeah.
That's somewhere between, I mean, usually there was 300. At times there was up to 600 homes, and there's 100. And it's not just one segment of housing that there's issues in. It's from one end to the very top end as well. Even if you're buying a very, very expensive house, you're paying market or above, or it's going to sell to someone else. I heard just today of someone that sold their house in 2 hours. That's the market. And to make it even worse, it's terribly expensive to build right now, and it can be $250 to $300 a square foot, not just for high-end housing, but for also different levels of housing as well. So it is an issue. And when we see these opportunities, it really helps to be supportive of those. Once again, it's a private sector solution to a problem that affects all of us. But I can say, one of those things that business industry is telling us is housing is an issue.
Yeah. Well, you think in any of these studies that that they've done for economic studies of the area, skilled workforce and housing are typically in the top three, and for very good reason. And we know right now, I mean, rents and rentable spaces they've inflated. I mean, you're paying a mortgage basically for rent now, in many cases, and so the supply is so low that we're going to continue to see these inflated prices because there are people there's an overflow of folks who need, whether you're from southern Colorado or northwest New Mexico, you got to find something that fits within your economy.
Well, and it's good that you mentioned southern Colorado, because that's one of the factors that's in play here as well, is the down valley effect. If you're in Durango and it's $1,000 a square foot, it's $1 million for a 1,500 square foot or whatever it may be home. That is a third to half. If you come down valley, that has effect on our values as well.
Sure.
And so we have issues. We just do, and we even have issues on the top end for people that's retiring even.
I know. Yeah.
So,
and we've got that 55 and over gated community that's now, I think we sold 3 houses maybe in there.
Yeah.
So it's growing, but there's and there's some other housing developments across the city and developers who are interested in building here, but land is is a a problem. We are short on actual developable land. But where we do have it, I really want to encourage our community to embrace this. We in order for us to not just grow, but to be sustained, we have to have places for people to live so that they can work here.
Well, and think about it. You have kids.
Yeah.
They got to have, eventually you want them to move out of your house. They're going to have places to go. But the voice of business industry is saying the same thing. So we want to be as supportive as we can for all levels of it, for the marketplace to fill this and partner with government when they can, because it's a fundamental need. It's if you could look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, housing and security are on top.
Right.
These are the first box you have to check before you're going to find ways to be successful, to be happy, and to make this community
Great point.
live.
Yeah, great point. Absolutely. I kind of skip back and around, but businesses interested in getting involved with Foreset.
It's real easy. You can reach out to us anyway, whether it be smoke signals, phone, or internet. We're good. The cell phone is 505-566-3720. Not cell phone, but the office number, 505-566-3720. You can email me directly, and I want to hear. If people see good ideas in other places, or they've moved from someplace and they said, I'd love to just to hear and be tapped in. I need the biggest kitchen cabinet of people I could ever have. But my email personally is tim@don't spell it out, but fourcornersed.com.
Okay.
You can go to our website, and it's got a link as well, which is www.fourcornersed.com. Once again, four. And the depository of information at the website is great. We do quarterly breakfasts, and we always do relevant topics, and bring in experts in to speak to us. And most people think that you're not an expert unless you're 60 miles away. Joke. Bad
Right.
joke.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We also do newsletters you can sign up for that's every 2 weeks, and those are great and always have relevant economic development topics. And there's a repository of all those things. But if you want to know demographics, if you want to know things about education, if you want to know things about the building blocks of economic development, it's all on that site.
I've done a really good job building that site out.
And you don't have to be a member. You just need a computer. We want people to know who we are. There's GIS information on sites, on buildings there as well. And if we don't have something, let us know, and we'll do our best to make it better. We're full service organization. We're professionally run, full service organization. But with all that, if we don't have great partners, if we aren't a multiplier, and that's at our core what we are, if we're not leading and we're not multiplying, we're not going to be successful. I use the analogy of we have the baton, not the magic wand. But we can do good things, and we have done some really, really good things, and we're setting the stage for even more.
I think so too. Well, and I appreciate all the members who are involved, the board, the volunteers. It's time. Our CEO, our board president this year, Vince Moffitt, doing a great job, and brings a lot of positivity and vision to that organization in a very telltale time. I'm more invigorated with where we're at right now with Four Corners Economic Development than I think I have probably since I've been an elected official. I think I feel like we're moving in the right direction, and it's very timely.
Well, my chairman, I believe he was in Santa Fe every single week of the legislative session.
He sure was.
And he raised the game of the organization as well. We took a different role this session than in roles past, because there was big things in play, and we had to, and we were representing others, and we aligned. We worked closely with Chamber of Commerce. We aligned closely with our municipal partners, the private industry. We have over 110 members now. We are right at 50% between private and public, so we're still representing the private sector as well as much as possible on that. The organization's growing. We're being strategic. We just adopted a new strategic plan, which is not static. It's going to change, but it's a roadmap, and it's how we measure decisions of what we do and how we use our capital.
Good stuff. Tim, do we miss anything?
I really like people to get involved. And there's all kinds of different ways to get involved. Some people will say, hey, if you got a business and they need to know how to depreciate their taxes, kind of like what a score does, or if you know how to market, or you really want to help people, you want to be part of the ecosystem that's entrepreneurial or anything else like that. If you have a forte that you're driven to be a part of, let us know, and we will use that talent, because we need everything we can get united, pulling this on the same rope. But when we do those things, we can compete. We can swing above our weight when we do those things.
Sure. No, you definitely are made more powerful by the collective and their talents. And thankful, too, for San Juan College, for their partnership up there, the Enterprise Center, the Small Business Center, Chamber of Commerce. You kind of got a one-stop shop of economic opportunity that exists and expertise that sits in the Equality Center for Business.
Well, the college last year touched 4,000 individuals were training for business as an industry. So 4,000 people gained skill sets, even if it may not have been a degree or even a credential, but knowledge to make them better at their job.
Yeah.
And if we can help facilitate what they do or any of other partners, bring it all to the table for we can take care of what keeps someone up at night or take advantage of that opportunity that's ahead for them, that's what we do as well. That's that force multiplier we're speaking of.
Well, Tim Gibbs, thanks for being here. Thanks for the work you're doing. Keep us informed, and I know we'll have you back on. It'll probably be another 15 months we'll have you back on.
It's not wait that long.
Talking about new things.
It's not wait.
And yeah, thank you for your support and the stuff that we're trying to do here, and initiative-wise, for our economy, for our local businesses, for our quality of life. All those things are very vital, so we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in here today. As Tim said, getting involved is critical. If you've got a special skill set, you've got an idea, Four Corners Economic Development is a great place to kind of bring those and be somebody who's at the table, willing to make change and challenge the process, I think is really important. So thank you for tuning in. Hope you're having a great summer, and we'll see you here next time on the Mayor's Table.